I can't.
It's crazy. All right, let me see if I
Yeah.
can get this live stream going. I love it when we get an author in the house.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing. All right, so we got laugh lines and turbulence. We are almost there.
Hmm.
Share to your page. Laugh lines and turbulence. There we go. We should be
Okay,
all
I'll
set.
refresh. Let me refresh and make
Are
sure
you
we're live.
refreshing?
Yes, and
Excellent.
uh, oh, hold on. Let me just put okay. Let me refresh. Yeah, it's a little. I got a son in IT who's got to take a look at this computer. All right, let's see. It should be live now. Like read. Okay, we are live. Okay, perfect.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. All righty. Well, hi everyone. How are you doing? And welcome on Tuesday. I know we were on Fridays and we might be throwing people off, but it is Tuesday at 5:30 now that we're doing our live stream, our podcast live stream. And we have Yvonne Caputo here with us. So Yvonne, I'm going to just do a real quick read on your bio
Okay.
and then we'll chit chat. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yvonne Caputo has been a teacher. She taught in public schools for 18 years. She has also been the vice president of human resources at a retirement community, a corporate trainer and consultant, a psychotherapist. She has a master's degree in education and clinical psychology. Her book, Flying with Dad, is about her relationship with her father as he tells World War II stories. Her second book, Dying with Dad, shares how she and her dad had tough conversations about what he wanted in the end. Yvonne, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. I love laugh lines and turbulence. I just love the whole idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We kind of like it a little bit.
I would
Yeah, yeah.
think.
We just came up with it. It took a while, but thank you so much. And we're so happy and so grateful to have amazing women like yourself be on this show with us. And we're just so looking forward for you to share your story. So please let us in, let us know.
We're opening the floor to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting because it all began with laugh lines and turbulence. Honestly, in 2008, my dad and I were on the phone, our weekly or biweekly phone call, and he lived on the other side of Pennsylvania. All right, so it was our way to connect. And he was a brittle diabetic, and I'm not a sports fan. So once we got through doctor's appointments and dialysis, those kinds of things, we generally stalled. But on this one night, he tells this quirky, funny, off the wall story about making an emergency landing of all things in a B-24 with their third engine out. Now, that's the engine, as I understand, that has the hydraulics. So
Hmm.
we're talking about nose wheels and rear wheels and all those
Hmm.
kinds of things. And he turns what could have been a catastrophe into this holy mackerel. You got to be kidding me. All right, so they make the safe landing
Hmm.
and yeah, they're in Liège, Belgium. And at that point, it's late 1945, almost at the end of the war. It's a hospital base. So there's no room at the inn. So what they do is they load the crew on a truck, drive them into the center of Liège, and dad's billeted over a bistro. Not a bad place, to spend the night.
Hmm.
So the owner of the bistro comes to dad and said, can you barter your cigarettes for something? And dad says, yeah, we can do that. So in the middle of the night, the bistro owner and dad on a commandeered truck go out into the countryside of Belgium, pull hay bales back, start digging and unearth cases of French champagne.
Oh,
Wow.
Load them back onto the truck. Dad makes sure they get back on the repaired B-24, and off they go to Rackheath, which is their base in England. Dad then gets the military police, says, you need to protect this plane because we're carrying top secret information. All right. The top secret information gets loaded into another truck. Half of it goes to the officers club. Half of it goes to the non-com club. And the following morning, Captain Shower. No, it's not Captain. I'm giving him the wrong thing. But anyway, the commander of the base is really upset at the condition of some of his men. Then Dad says something equally interesting. He said, all you need to do, hon, is breathe pure oxygen, which is what they got when they were in the plane up 22,000 feet above the ground, and your head clears. That was the story. That was the story. And the next week, when I was on the phone with Dad, I said, if you're willing, start at the beginning. And story after story after story rolled off his tongue. And me, never thinking I was going to be an author, I said, I've got something.
Mhm.
And I did the Google searching, and I didn't find anything quite like the stories that Dad was telling me.
Mm.
And so, yeah, the book started around the age of 62. It took me 11 years to finish. Dad passed away shortly after. He had seen the first draft of the book. That was his Christmas
Wow.
present.
Wow.
So that's my story. Laugh lines and turbulence. And let me tell you about turbulence at 22,000 feet above the ground.
That
Yeah.
is crazy, amazing
Mhm.
that you captured, that you had this opportunity. Because there's so many people that work with veterans and trying to, get their stories. Just the fact that he remembered all of that and you were able to get that captured and put into a book, amazing.
When I asked him to start at the beginning, he started at high school
Mm.
and graduated. He was the only child in his family. He was the only son born in the United States of Italian immigrants, learned to repair airplanes, and that craft would have kept him out of the war. But here's another crazy dad story. So an AT-6 comes in to his depot. He's now in Georgia, and it doesn't have a wing. And Dad would say young learning pilots would bust them up. So it was his job to fix them up and get them back airworthy so that they could bust them up again. So the pilot, I have to stop back, didn't have a wing. So Dad called all the depots around the United States thinking that he could get a wing shipped to him, and he'd put it on the plane and off it would go. No wing. So he goes to his supervisor and said, do you have blueprints? And the supervisor said, sure. What are you going to do with them? He said, I'll build it. 17 and a half feet of a wing. And how he knew how to build it was because he built model airplanes as a kid.
Oh,
As a
wow.
kid, that's how he could read a blueprint. So the wing gets fastened to the plane. The pilot who's going to test it for the first time comes over to Dad, knowing the story, and says, is it going to fly? Dad says, sure. Dad is 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the pilot says, are you sure it's going to fly? And Dad said, yeah.
Mhm.
Are you sure it's going to fly? And Dad said, yeah. And he said, good, son, get in, because if it goes down, you're going down with it. Dad, the AT-6 is a two-seater. All right, so the pilot's in the front and Dad's in the back. And Dad said, hon, I didn't want to fix him anymore. I wanted to fly him. So he petitioned to get out of his safe United States duty of repairing airplanes and became a cadet in what was then the United States Army Air Force, Army Air Corps. I got to correct my history. So he never would have had to have gone. And he didn't go for love of country. He didn't go because Eisenhower was calling him. He didn't go out of a spirit of pride or whatever. He wanted to fly.
Wow.
And as the stories kept running and running, here's where the turbulence comes in. The war is over. He's back in Meadville. He's having nightmares. And the nightmares are always the same. His B-24 is going down, and he's trying to get to a place where he can bail out and open his chute. And in the passageway that he's trying to get through, it's lined with stainless steel. And Dad said, I couldn't get purchase. I couldn't pull myself through because there was nothing to grab onto. And at some point he would start screaming and Mom would wake him up and she would say, okay, Mike, what is it? And his response always was, it's not important. So Dad is telling me this story and I'm a psychotherapist. I know about PTSD. So I said to him, I said, well, you know, your nightmares were normal. My father's voice, what the hell do you mean? And I said, Dad, sadly, they didn't know about nightmares and about what happened to men who witnessed the kind of things that you witnessed. On one of his very first flights, and I'll get back to the story, but on one of his very first flights, he watched planes go down around him. The B-24 was really easy to shoot up. The gasoline, extra gasoline tanks were in the wing. And where the wing was situated on the fuselage, it was really easy to shoot it off and then planes would explode. So he said, Yvonne, he said, I was so scared, I peed myself. And he starts laughing. So anyway, that led into, when we're talking about this nightmare, I said, they just didn't know what were normal reactions to the abnormal things that you witnessed. And I said, and so you carried this all along. I said, tell me what it was like when you came back from the war. He said, well, I walked around town and I saw the GIs and they certainly looked like they were okay. So he said, I always questioned what was wrong with me. And I said, if you would have sat down and talked to them, many of them might not have been okay either. They were carrying the same kind of horror that you were carrying. So one of the beauties of that book was the more that Dad talked, the more that I asked questions, the more that I researched. Because he told me he got amoebic dysentery in Miami Beach during basic training. And he said they took him to the hospital and treated him with arsenic.
Oh, wow.
I said, no way, you know. And he said, yes, way. So the research validated his story. Penicillin was developed in 1943 by the British. They couldn't afford to mass produce it. So it came to the United States. So my diving into depths and Dad telling stories, there was this point where Dad and I became the father and daughter that I always wanted to be. And that's flying with Dad.
Yeah. Do you feel like he, by talking through those things with you, do you think that he had some resolve of the PTSD?
When I've told the story on many occasions, that conversation ended with sarcasm, because that was the language in our family. We're all really good at it. And I said, "So sorry, pal, you're just normal." And I could literally hear his shoulders drop. This release that 50 years after the fact, he's finding out that those nightmares, which lasted 3 years, they were so bad he dug channels in the mattress.
Oh,
They had to get rid of the mattress and get a new one. But after 3 years, and he never knew why, they just stopped happening. But his being able to tell me those things, they were the bridge that let me understand my dad in a whole new way. And for him to look at me in a brand new way. How do you know this stuff? I'm a psychotherapist, Dad. That's what I do for a living. It's what I learned to do. So that's the message of Flying with Dad.
beautiful.
It's amazing. What did he think when he had the opportunity to read the draft?
I sent him the first 4 chapters. And we were on the phone, and I said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, I knew that you would write it in your own voice. It wouldn't be mine, but it's missing something." I said, "Well, what's it missing?" "Oh, it doesn't matter." "Dad, what's it missing?" "Well, it doesn't matter." I said, "Dad," he said, "combat was terrifying." Combat was terrifying. My father didn't use feeling words. He generally didn't have a feeling vocabulary. So as I continued on, as I said, I gave him the first draft on Christmas. And it was the Christmas right before he died. And he was in the hospital where he did this at Christmas time. Okay, his family's nowhere around. So what's the best place to be at Christmas? In the hospital. Because you can imagine my dad was a character, and the nurses doted on him, and the aides doted on him. I mean, everybody loved him. So he had this place to be where he could be with family of sorts. So we went up to visit him. And when we were leaving, he was holding the book. And I said, "I want you to know how proud I am of you." And he said, "What for?" I said, "Your service." And he said to me, he said, "No, honey, I'm proud of you. You wrote the book."
Wonderful that you got that from him and he got that from you. You know, that you shared that together. And it's interesting because what you said, that you're the relationship you wanted with your dad, how you wanted it to be. And it even, especially back then, a lot of fathers back in the day had to hide their feelings, had to be the man of the family, had to be, and my dad was like that. Like like you said, they didn't use those feeling words, but they're human. And what a wonderful, way to, him to express his human side as well.
So another answer to your original question is yes, I think those conversations helped a great deal for Dad to have a different understanding of what happened to him during the war. And interestingly enough, there's a picture of my father, and he's sitting side by side with my cousin, Claude. Claude was the ne'er-do-well relative. And there was such animosity coming from my mother in particular that we didn't speak. He and I kept in contact, but as a family member. So Claude was in Meadville, in my hometown, and he called me. He said, "I'd really like to go see your dad. Do you think that'd be okay?" And I said, "I'll call him." And when I called Dad, he said, I'd love to see him. All right. Claude at this point was a Buddhist monk. His trauma from Vietnam was resolved through Buddhism. And so Claude came to our house in what I would call, from the Roman Catholic tradition, a cassock. Okay, a black full robe. Okay, and I don't know what the pieces of it's called. So here's Claude in that black tunic, sitting on the couch with my dad, and they started talking war stories. And when I look at that picture, I get this sense of my father having gone to confession, in a sense, was somebody who really understood.
Yeah.
Somebody who had been there and done it. So there were, throughout the writing of the book, there were times where that kind of thing came through to me.
Yeah. There's such a camaraderie amongst veterans. Yeah. And I'm a social worker. I work in the VA healthcare system, and they feel comfortable talking with another vet because they feel understood when they don't necessarily feel that same way with civilians who haven't walked in those shoes. So, or in your dad's case, blown in the shoes. So, so you finished the first book, and so tell us a little bit about your second book then.
My publisher said to me, she said, I think you've got 3 more books in you. So what do you think they are?
Love that. Yeah.
And I gave her my 3, and she came back and she said, what about the 5 wishes? Now I can, do you know this, Gina? Oh, goody. Okay. So I thought, oh my goodness, that could be an incredible book to write. So Dying with Dad is all the stories from my being even little that my parents did a really good job of getting us accustomed to the idea of death and dying.
Wow.
It wasn't hidden from us. They took us to the funeral home. If we had a pet that died, we had a funeral and a box and a comfortable way for that pet. They always kind of included us. So I always felt that was kind of like it was a normal part of family life for us to have aspects of death and dying. So people who read the first book said, when it was time, how did you have the courage to let him go? Where did you find that courage? How'd you do it? And the story is that I was, when I was vice president in a retirement community, backstory, we had a case where a woman was in our nursing wing, late stages of dementia, totally uncommunicative, developed sores on her feet. And our physician recommended foot baths and antibiotics. Her daughter said no. My mother, if she can't have quality of life, my mother wants to go, and here's my advance directive, which makes me able to speak for Mom. The problem was the advance directive was written in another state, and the state of Pennsylvania doesn't recognize quality of life as a reason to let someone pass. So it ended up that our attorney said it's got to go to court. And in court, it was decided that there would be a surrogate. The surrogate would allow for the foot baths and for the antibiotics. And if that didn't work, then the daughter could take over as healthcare agent and say, stop treatment.
Mhm.
I didn't want that for Dad. I mean, it set me back on my heels, literally. So I called Dad, and I knew he had a will because I had a copy of it. I said, "Do you have an advance directive? Do you know what that is?" And when I explained it to him, he said, "No." He said, "I've never heard of anything like that." And I said, "Well, if I find an attorney and I'll come back to Meadville, would you be willing to go and get this thing done?" And he said, "Sure." So we did. So we did the attorney drawn advance directive. And then fast forward 3 years or so, one of the people on our management team came back from a conference with this pamphlet, The Five Wishes. And she said, "You guys are not going to believe what this thing does."
Mhm.
And so I asked her to borrow it. And one Friday, I was trying to clean off my desk so that the housekeepers could clean it because they wouldn't touch it, if it was a mess. And I pulled this thing out and I sat and read it.
Mhm.
And I said, "I got to do this with Dad. This goes so far beyond what any other advance directive that I've ever seen."
Mhm.
So let me tell you about Dad. My dad could get angry and yelling on a nanosecond. It did not take anything at all for him to just tap. And I thought, how am I going to introduce this? So I'm driving across the state, right? 6.5 hours. How am I going to introduce this? The five wishes is on the seat beside me. What's he going to be like? Am I going to have to wait till he drowns out? Just all this trepidation. I walk into his hospital room again, again, and I went over and we did pleasantries. And I said, "I've got another document I'd like you to take a look at. Are you willing?" He said, "Sure." So he put his legs over the side of the bed. He patted the seat beside him. I sat down in my father's warmth, and we pulled the tray on coasters over, and we went through the five wishes item by item.
Mhm.
"Dad, do you want this?" "No." "Dad, do you want that?" "Yes." "How do you want to be remembered?"
Mhm.
"What do you want your children to know?" "Do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated?" "What kind of a funeral do you want to have?" It was all there, everything that I would have needed. And my father's words to us frequently as we were growing up, he said, "When it's my time, I want to go feet first out of my own home." So we all know what that means, right?
Mhm.
So I had been to see Dad that Christmas when he told me he was proud of me. We had driven back across the state. He called me on the phone. I held the phone out here. He was livid. He was screaming at me. "Why did you tell them that I could be out of the hospital? I'm not ready to be out of the hospital. How could you do that to me?" And I waited, and the storm passed. And I said to him, I said, "Dad, I told the social worker that you could go home when you were ready. It
Mhm.
doesn't sound like you're ready."
Mhm.
And then he said to me, "I'm sorry, Yvonne, can you come home? I'm scared."
Mhm.
And I said, "I can't drive tonight, but I promise first thing in the morning, I'll be on the road." So once we got off the phone, I contacted a friend of mine. She had a granddaughter who was a CNA, and she agreed to go over and stay with Dad so Dad wouldn't be alone.
Mhm.
When I was driving home, of course, now we've got cell phones, and I could call the pharmacy and I could get medication to him. And the young CNA went down and got it, and he was just in pain. He was in a great deal of pain. I think because of the dry heaves he was having when he was in the hospital, his intercostal muscles must have been shredded.
Mhm.
Whatever it was, But by the time I got home, he was feeling a whole lot better. So he asked me to get him some yogurt. I did. And then I heard him go back down the hall, and I thought, oh, okay, he's going to go to the bathroom. When he didn't come back out, he was in the bedroom trying to get into bed. And he said, can you lift my feet for me? And I put another pillow under his head, and then I covered him up, kept his feet out because he didn't like his feet covered, and left. And good friends from across the street were coming over. Actually, they came, and we were going to move a recliner up to the living room so that that could be a place where Dad could probably be more comfortable. We heard a thud. Back we went. Dad was face first down on the floor. Called the EMTs. They arrived almost immediately. One of them and myself, I was able to help lift Dad so that we could get him out to the end of the bed. And they started working. And I started to say no. And they said, we have to. Well, luckily, I called the hospital, said, there's a DNR on Dad's chart. Get it to the hospital or get it to the emergency room. The hand of God, the ER doctor called and said, you can stop working on him. And I went back, and the EMT said to me, it won't be long now. I laid down beside my dad. I put my arm over his chest. I whispered in his ear that I loved him. I told him he was going to be with my mother, which is what he wanted to be. And then I did the glue that was in our family, and that's the Lord's Prayer. And he was gone. So up on the gurney, they put Dad's body. They take it out, set it down by the ambulance. Now, this is northwestern Pennsylvania. The snow's coming down an inch an hour. The ambulance doors are open and the lights shining on Dad's face. And there was this soft, sweet smile, beatific smile. And honest to God, I went, yes. The EMTs looked at me like if I'd had a marble, I'd lost it all. And I said to them, I said, this is my father's dying wish, feet first, out of his own home. So my passion around the second book, Dying with Dad, is every time I tell this story, I get filled with such joy. Joy. A profound, sacred joy. That smile said to me, thanks, Yvonne. I trusted you to take care of me, and you did. And I would love other people to experience that joy. So that means you got to get those documents together. You've got to choose a healthcare agent. And if you don't know about the 5 wishes, go to 5wishes.org. It's $5. It's legal, I think, I could be wrong, in 42 states. And fast forward, my brother and sister come home, and we're in the office of Father Gramata. Time to plan the funeral. And Michael, my older brother, said, well, I don't know how this works. And I said, well, here's what Dad wants. He wants all the smells and bells. Those were my father's words. He wanted a high mass. My husband has a glorious tenor voice. He said, Kirk will sing the Ave Maria, the Lord's Prayer, and Amazing Grace. And he told me prior to that, yes, and Yvonne, you will sing too. So that was settled. I mean, Michael and Connie and I, my brother and sister, we didn't have to wrestle over anything. He had even had some kind of a savings account that we got money back after the funeral because he paid in too much. His will was there. All of the papers were processed. He made it easy for us. So that's Dying with Dad.
Yeah. I love that. And the other thing too is you didn't have to put a ton of thought into now what.
Mhm.
You knew
Yeah.
exactly what he wanted.
Mhm.
There was no wow, there was no now what.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've written books, you know about beta readers. Okay. So readers are reading Dying with Dad, and I called them. I wanted, wait a minute, I'm confused. I'm older now, I can be confused. So anyway, I wanted some feedback. And one young woman said, my parents have been trying to talk to me about this for ages, and I've always shut them up, pushed it aside. We don't need to do that. Let's not worry about that.
Mhm.
Also thinking that talking about it would make it happen.
Mhm.
Then when she read the book, she went over to the house and said, yeah, we need to talk about it. What do you want? You know what? That's the wrong
Mhm.
tone. Sorry. Then another person who read it, 85, had no idea that it needed to be done,
Mhm.
had no idea about an advance directive. So he did it. And later on his 87th birthday, he told his daughters, we're going to do a Zoom call on my birthday. That's all I want. And I want to go over
Mhm.
the 5 wishes with you. When it got to the part of burial or cremation, he said, I want to be cremated. So the daughters asked, well, what do you want us to do with your ashes? And he said, oh, I don't care. What does it matter at that point? Throw them over the bridge, don't. And they
Yeah.
said, Dad, what if we would like to take them out to the farm where you were born? This is on the prairies in Canada.
Mhm.
He said, that's too much trouble. And they said, well, what if we'd like to do that? And he said, really? So he rewrote that part of the 5 wishes so that when the event happens, they will be able to do that for him.
Mhm.
The best one was one of the writers in my writers group, acutely ill, had a surgery that went wrong, and surgery after surgery trying to correct, whatever.
Yeah.
And she had finally said to her family, enough is enough. I want to go on hospice. She wanted to talk to the writers in the group, so her husband made it possible through Zoom. When she and I were able to talk, it lasted 15 minutes, or 8 minutes, I'm sorry. All she said was, thanks for the 5 wishes. I can't believe how wonderful the 5 wishes are. I've gone over them with my family. They all know and accept that I'm ready, and they're supporting me on this.
Mhm.
As a writer, what more do you need when you hear those kinds of stories? So that's how Dying to Dad came to be.
Mhm.
It's so amazing as a writer, and I know this from my own personal experience with it. You're not just writing your story, you're writing for others,
Mhm.
to reach to others and to make a difference. And it sounds like that's totally what you're doing, especially with that second book, but the first book
Mhm.
as well. But making others aware, creating that awareness of the
Mhm.
importance
Mhm.
of those documents.
Mhm.
I did a book event where people had read Flying with Dad. That's so
Yeah,
much fun, to
yeah,
do a
it is.
book event with people who read
Uh,
what you've written.
yeah.
Mhm.
And there were 3 20-year-olds amongst a lot of gray hair. And during the whole book talk, they didn't say a thing. Well, I'm a teacher, so you don't get to get away with that kind of stuff in my classroom, right? So I called on the first one, and she said, I'm fascinated by World War II. And she said,
Mhm.
your dad's stories were so unique. They brought such a different perspective to what I've been studying.
Mhm.
The second girl I picked on, talked to, I asked her, what about the book? And she said, I have a really good relationship with my father.
Mhm.
And your book made me appreciate what I have.
Mhm.
The third one was, I don't have a good relationship with my father, and your book has made me want to have one. So now he and I are spending more time together, which is really helping.
So remarkable.
Mhm.
Love that.
Mhm.
What you got, Debbie? I see your
I'm just,
brain thinking.
I'm just listening because I'm just soaking a lot in, Yvonne, because my mom recently passed, and it's just kind of going over like how important those advanced directives are, and uh, my situation is it's a big thing, but the way that just listening to you talk about the five wishes and how it helped other people gain awareness about that. I mean, helping someone else in that situation like you were in to help your parents especially. It's such a gift to be there for your parents, to comfort them, honor their wishes as they transition.
Mhm.
That is, I believe, one of the most beautiful gifts you can give back to your parent. I really do. And having that, your book, and having that awareness is, if it helps one person, great. But if it helps more, many more, wonderful. So,
So it's
yeah,
become first of all, condolences.
thank you. Mhm.
It's hard to be without a mother.
Yeah.
It's just this strange place to be without a
Mhm.
mother.
Mhm.
Yeah, that I am now deliciously semi-retired. But even at this age, to be able to have a passion,
Mhm.
a purpose,
Yes.
you know, so for women who are watching,
Mhm.
it ain't over until the fat
Yeah.
lady sings.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Well, the two of you,
Mm.
right? You're now doing stuff. Did you think that at your age you'd be doing this?
No, I mean, Gina and I, when we reconnected, we knew each other many years ago. I had switched careers after the age of 50. At 53, I left the medical field and became a flight attendant, and all my friends thought I was nuts because I was in medicine for 33 years. So, I think what you're taught, what's encouraging about someone like you writing your book, and like you said, it ain't over, like until Fat Lady Sings, meaning that you keep going, you keep developing your passions, you keep developing your purpose no matter at what age. I mean, Gina and I are close to 60, and I talk to certain, everyone's at a different level at this weird age of our life. Some are okay with just like, hey, I just want to watch my shows and do this for the rest of my life. And that's wonderful. But everyone else, there's other people that feel like I can't do that. I need to, do something else. And then maybe another project and the project after that. I don't want to leave this planet without leaving some type of legacy or making some type of difference.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
Yeah. So,
Do
but
you
it was,
feel? Oh, go
go ahead.
ahead. No, go.
No, and I was just going to say the people that think, you're nuts at doing something at a certain age, you know what? That's none of their business. And so it's like,
Right.
you're going to have the naysayers saying, what are you doing? What, aren't you too old for that? Not, no.
Well, I think about you, Debbie. A bullet bit you that
Oh
said, I
yeah.
want to be a flight attendant. And you
Yeah.
went for it. And the bullet bit me too. I've got something here that's worthy of sharing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then life becomes fun again.
Yes.
Yes. It's oh, you just gave me
I got them
goosebumps when you
too.
did you?
They're in my back right now.
I totally felt them right down my neck, which is so funny. Life became fun again. I love that quote. Life
Mhm.
became fun again. It sure did.
Yeah.
It sure did. And there's some kind of rejuvenation. There's some type of like, like life became fun again and you become alive again. And it does. There's something that charges you up.
Mhm.
Um, if you are in a group of men, the conversation will be around what did you do?
Mhm.
A lot of career talk. And I think we as women are getting that way as well.
Mhm.
That it's opened up for us. After the
Mhm.
Second World War and the 70s, it's opened up for us. So we can be very much involved in careers. So it can
Oh
be as
yeah.
meaningful to us as it can be for the men.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it should be fun. A side story,
Yes.
as HR VP, it was my job to fire people.
Mhm.
And
Um,
we did it well. We we had a structured way of doing it. And so I was in a meeting with someone, and one of the questions that I developed was just to be sure, and I took notes, was what's your understanding of why you're being let go?
Mhm.
And one of the women said, I hated this job. I've hated it ever since I started. And I said, please find something that you love.
yes.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference to do what
Mhm.
you love.
Mhm.
Yes.
And we're all at a point in time that we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
I
Hmm.
love your message. I absolutely
Hmm.
love it. So many messages, but like
Hmm.
layers, there's layers of just beauty there
Hmm.
and
Oh
lessons
yeah.
learned, and
Many.
love your story.
Hmm.
I've loved every career I've had, every one of them.
Hmm.
And just things happened. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
um, I met this guy. I was in my 40s. I had never been married. And he has two children. I have two stepchildren. And there was no way that I could ask him to move to where I was living because he was committed to be close to his kids.
Mhm.
I'm a teacher, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm going to tell him, no, you got to come my way. Wasn't happening. It wasn't even a part of our conversation.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, even that switch, I came out to the other side of the state and couldn't find a teaching job and landed in a mental health not an institution. I wasn't in one. I want to clarify
Uh,
that. And
uh,
that's and that's not nice to say because
right. But,
there's there's so much that can be done through therapy, as you well know,
mm,
as a
Yeah.
social worker. Um,
mhm.
but I was just really fortunate that I could pivot and go and do.
Mhm.
Can you say what airline you fly for?
I don't know if I can, I don't know if I could say it out loud. But we love our passengers.
That'll give me
What
a
do you,
clue.
that would give you does that give you a clue?
Yes, it
We
does.
love our passengers. The heart.
Mhm.
And my opinions are my own and they're not of my company. But yeah, but I mean, I can allude to where I'm at. Absolutely. So yeah, I love my airline. So
Oh, that's great.
I'm
That's
having the
great.
time of my life. They're amazing. They're great to their employees, and I get to go to places that I never would have even dreamed of going to. I
Mhm.
like it's things that have never even interested me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really do like Boise, Idaho. I love Bozeman, Montana, and I love Cancun and Punta Cana. And, I tell my family, see ya, I'm going to the beach in Costa Rica over the weekend.
Bye-bye
But it was,
now.
yeah, but it was scary. I mean, Yvonne, it was very fearful. I had a supervisor position at a hospital, big hospital here in Chicago, and I loved my job there, but I knew I wanted to fly, and I knew with all my heart that's what I wanted to do. And I was scared writing that resignation letter. I waited to the last minute, and I'm like, I did it. So yeah, I love it.
You're my father's daughter. You're my father's daughter because he loved to fly. I am not
Yes.
my father's daughter.
Mhm.
There's something, and I tell like everyone, when I drive to the employee parking lot and the plane goes over, I'm based out of Chicago. You'd never stop looking up. You never stop. And there's this thrill I get when I see the plane from the parking when I'm about to get on the employee shuttle and I see it out of the parking lot. I get out of my car and I see the plane and I see when we do this, we take off and we bank a little bit,
Yeah.
and gain out. I just love that part. I just like So every time I look and see that plane bank and that little poof of smoke comes out of the engines, as we accelerate, when I see it from the ground, I know exactly what part that is when I'm inside the aircraft. Is so amazing.
Well, I think that's probably the same kind of feeling that Dad had when he had that first flight.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
so the one thing that's different though, Debbie, can you imagine 22,000 feet above the ground, unpressurized cabins,
No.
windows in the back of the plane, in the back of the fuselage
Mm-hmm.
that were open so that the
Mm-hmm.
gunners could do their thing,
I c-
oxygen masks.
yes, they had to wear
Amazing.
those masks, yes, at that
And it was my
altitude.
dad's job to check in every few minutes to find out that people were still, because the oxygen masks would freeze over.
Hmm.
So, and I flew in a B-24.
Wow.
There was a
Wow.
time when they would come around to
Hmm.
different air shows,
Yes.
and I gifted my husband for Christmas, and I for a flight on one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal,
Yeah.
unreal what those guys did in that plane.
Mhm.
And when you think about it, like and it's I don't want to say funny, but it's so interesting to me. I know people, I feel so empathetic to nervous flyers, and I try to comfort people as much as I can when they're on the aircraft, and I always think to myself, like your dad's story, like they were flying planes back in World War II with no windows, and I can't even imagine like how like I think about that sometimes, like how far we have come in aviation, how far we've come in aviation, and we were still getting off the ground back in your dad's day. That plane was getting off the ground, and they were doing their thing, and they were doing their tricks or whatever as well, like their barrel rolls and all of that stuff. So it's amazing.
So one story, okay.
Hmm.
So 50 years after the fact, Dad goes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And Wright-Patterson has an entire World War II wing. And parked in that wing was a B-24.
Hmm.
And he grabbed his friend and said, come on. That was the first place they were going to go.
Hmm.
So Dad's walking along the fuselage and around the tail,
Hmm.
and parked right next to it was a German Messerschmitt 262, the jet.
Yeah.
My dad lost consciousness and dropped to the floor,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
dropped to the floor. When he came to, his buddy said, what happened, Mike? And Dad said, I don't know. And when Dad told me this story, I said, that's called a flashback.
Mhm.
I said, tell me about the Messerschmitt.
Mm.
And he said, oh, honey, it was so fast. He said, our gunners couldn't trail it. And he said, it could bob and weave and in and out. And he said,
Yeah.
they flew in tight formations.
Mhm.
They didn't vary how they were flying because they were safer in a tight formation.
Right.
So he
Yeah.
said, we were sitting ducks.
Mm.
So then I was able to explain to Dad that here again, that's a normal experience,
Yes.
given what it is that he went through.
Right.
Mhm.
60 years after the event, I said,
Yeah.
there's a little part in your brain called the hippocampus, and it saw that plane and it remembered.
Mhm.
And you do fight, flight, freeze, or play dead. And which one
Mm.
did you do, Dad? He said, I guess I played dead.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So for somebody who flies,
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
I
there. Yeah.
love, Yvonne, I love the fact that like Debbie's the flight attendant, I'm the writer, and we got a mix of both with
Hmm.
our chat with you.
Yes. Yes.
Love it.
Yvonne, has your father ever participated in a honor flight at all?
those really didn't start happening, I think, until after Dad
Mm.
was gone. Now, he did get to go back to England
Mm.
Mhm.
in 1995, the 50th
Yes.
anniversary of the end of the war.
Mm.
And he got to go back to what had been his air base. And
Mm.
he got to be with others from the 467th Bomb Group. That was his bomb group. He got
Mm.
to do all those kinds of things.
Yes.
And we would be in a pub, and Dad would open his mouth. And of course, he sounds like an American. And he'd be surrounded by English people who
Mm.
just wanted to talk to him. And they interviewed him when he came back. And he said it was so meaningful to be so accepted and to be
Yeah.
treated like such royalty. He said it gave me a really intense feeling about how much we are appreciated,
Mhm.
that what we did during World War II was appreciated. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh yeah.
really, really glad that he got that experience.
Yeah.
And there was a parade, and the parade went from City Hall down to a cathedral built in the 1100s.
Mm. Oh
I
my
know, and
goodness.
and and we don't know, do we?
Yeah.
So the what they have, their young people were first, and then their armed forces were next, and then there were the British who flew during the war, and then
Mm.
the very end of the parade were these Americans.
Mm.
And I'm sitting up on a wall, and when I saw my father, I started screaming, "There's my dad! There's
Oh.
my dad!"
Oh,
And
Oh.
yeah.
so in this newspaper article, here's my father. He said, yes. And he said, my daughter was screaming when I was in the parade, and I was like he had an American accent and not an English one.
Amazing. Now, what did your dad do after the military? What was his career? Because I was going to ask you, did he continue in aviation or?
Um, he could have gone back to repairing
Mm.
airplanes in Georgia, but that would have meant far, far away from my mother's family.
Mm.
So during the war, when he was in Meadville, that's where he and Mom met. He used to buy his clothes at the local clothing store. And the man who owned that clothing store told Dad, when you come back from the war, you have a job.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So he sold men's clothes, and then he sold jewelry, and then
Mm.
he worked for Prudential. But
Mm.
one of the things remember that story where he told me he was proud of me?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, as a part of our talking together, and I asked him, well, how did he want to be remembered? He said, I want to be remembered for my work with the Red Cross.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
I said, well, what about the war? And he said, well, that too.
Yeah.
Like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
So maybe in the second or the third iteration of the book, it dawned on me, the Red Cross, I got to go digging.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. I went to the local regional office trying to find maybe some newspaper articles about Dad or something like this.
Yeah.
And the woman who ran the office brought me a banquet pamphlet. In it was Dad's name. 41 years he had volunteered for the Red
Wow.
Cross.
Wow.
41 years. And he was part of a group that established emergency services in the two hospitals in our little town.
Wow.
And he got into ham radio. And at the highest point in Meadville was the county fairgrounds. He had a repeater built so that the Johnstown flood, they were able to get communications through on his radio.
Wow.
He would be on the radio and you'd hear him say K3YK, K3YK, anybody out there? And somebody would come on.
Yeah.
And someone came on and said, hi, I'm calling from South America. We
Oh,
need
wow.
a drug for this guy or we're going to lose him.
Yeah.
And Dad called the Cleveland Clinic. Yes, they could get the drug. He
Okay.
then called the Air Force. The Air Force flew it down.
Wow.
Wow.
So he, all through the rest of his life, he did those kinds of things, very involved in community service. And here I am not knowing that my dad spent 41 years
Wow.
with the American Red Cross.
Wow.
What a legacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He made a difference too.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so
Wonderful.
much, Yvonne. We are so thrilled to have you here, and I don't know, there are no words. Just I love your stories. I love what you're doing as your
Yes.
mission, and keep on trucking along.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the author way. Keep
So
trucking along.
yeah. So
Yeah,
inspirational.
Yes.
And for your audience, I want to correct myself. As a psychotherapist, I so love working with mental health.
Yeah.
I love when people see that they're normal and their experiences are normal and they find something that helps them to move forward and to let go of things. So I didn't mean to be crass.
Oh no. Yeah.
No.
There was no crassness whatsoever. No. It's been a
Okay.
wonderful conversation. Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we enjoyed it. We enjoyed meeting you, and thank you so much for all of your wisdom and inspiration for sure.
But your theme, laugh lines and turbulence, it's so
That,
appropriate.
Absolutely.
yeah, it is. That's how we came up with our name, because after 50, Gina became a humor writer and I, became a flight attendant. So there we go.
Yep.
hmm
Yvonne, if our listeners and viewers want to find your books, where's the best place that they can go to find you and find your books?
Any retailer, Amazon,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble. I
Yeah.
always appreciate it when they go to their local independent bookstore and say, I heard about this book. Can you order it for me?
Yeah.
That's priceless.
Yeah.
The name of my publisher is Ingenium Books, INGNIUM Books, so they can learn about me there. And if they want to get in touch personally, my email's really easy. Yvonne at YvonneCaputo.com.
Nice.
Perfect.
And we'll add those links to the
Yes.
to the different places that we post this video.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Yvonne. All right, hold on 1 second. Give
There's
us
one.
one moment.
Got that one.